My name is Ryan. This happened 3 years ago when I was 17, and my brother Chris was 19. We live in a small town where nothing much happens, the kind of place surrounded by miles of woods. Kids like us get bored easily, so we always talked about doing something exciting. There's a trail near our house that cuts deep into the forest, and people say there are old buildings and strange things hidden way back there. We always said we'd go look for them someday, but we never actually did until one weekend in October. That weekend, we had nothing better to do. Chris said we should finally check out this old house he'd heard about from other kids at school. It was a cool, cloudy day. The leaves had all turned red and yellow, and it made for a nice, peaceful walk. We packed water bottles and flashlights, told our mom we were going hiking, and left the house around 3 p.m. We knew the sun would set early in October, so we figured we had maybe 2 hours to get there and back before it got dark. At first, the walk was normal. I'd hiked in these woods before, plenty of times. But about 10 minutes into the trail, something started to feel strange. It was this sudden, cold feeling in my stomach, like I had walked this exact trail before. Not just a regular memory, but like I remembered this exact moment and even the conversation Chris was having with me as he walked ahead. Then we passed a broken fence post on the trail, and that's when the feeling got stronger. I felt like I remembered that too. I knew I had never been down this trail before, not in real life, but something in my mind was saying otherwise. Chris was still walking ahead, talking about something random, but I wasn't really listening anymore. I kept looking around at the trees, at the path beneath my feet, and everything felt too familiar. I started remembering specific things before they happened. I knew there would be a thick tree with a hollow hole on the side of the trail, and 5 minutes later, we passed it. Just like I knew we would. I didn't say anything to Chris. I've had déjà vu before, but this time it felt heavier, like it was wrapping around me. As we walked deeper into the woods, more strange memories came to me. I started picturing a house, a 2-story house with peeling green paint and a broken front step. I saw it in my mind as clear as day. I remembered a shattered window on the top floor and dead vines crawling up the walls. But here's the thing. I had never seen this house before, not in real life. I kept those thoughts to myself. But then we reached the house, and when I saw it, my stomach dropped. It was exactly like the house in my head. Every detail matched. I just stood there staring at it while Chris walked toward the porch. My legs wanted to turn around and run. My brain started to question reality. Had I really never seen this house before? I finally asked Chris if it looked familiar to him. He said no, and gave me a weird look, asking what I meant. I told him straight up, I feel like I've been here before. This exact moment. It's like I've lived this before. Chris thought I was just trying to creep him out, but I wasn't. I didn't want to sound crazy, but the feeling was too intense to ignore, so we kept going. The front door was already cracked open, which meant we definitely weren't the first people to explore this place. Chris pushed the door open slowly, and it made this long, squeaky sound that echoed through the house. Inside, the air smelled like mold and rot, the kind of smell you expect in a place that's been abandoned for years. The silence in there was heavy. It pressed on my ears like the house itself didn't want us inside. We stepped in, looking around. There was broken furniture everywhere, wallpaper hanging in strips off the walls, and a staircase going up on the left side of the room. We checked out the first floor. There was a kitchen with no lights, a living room with an old fireplace, and a hallway with one closed door at the end. Every room felt like it was watching us. At least that's how it felt to me. Chris made a joke about how creepy the place was. I agreed with him, but I was too focused on the memories in my head. Then, without thinking, I said something out loud. The words just slipped out before I could stop them. I said, I remember being here before. Chris stopped walking and turned to look at me. His face was pale. He asked, what do you mean? I didn't even know why I said it, but I repeated myself. I remember this place, the kitchen, the hallway, even the fireplace. And I remember there's a woman upstairs. Chris laughed nervously like I was messing with him to make things scarier, but I told him I'm not joking. I'm not trying to scare you. I have this weird memory of being here before and of someone being upstairs. I could tell I rattled him a little, but in a place like that, it wasn't hard to freak someone out. We stood there in silence for a second. Then we heard it, a creak. It sounded exactly like a floorboard being stepped on. It came from upstairs. Chris and I locked eyes. He didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then he dared me to go check it out. I told him absolutely not, I wanted to leave right then. But Chris somehow convinced me to play rock, paper, scissors to see who would go up there. I lost, but I still refused. Chris was braver, worse, stupider than me. He said he'd go up there himself rather than leave without knowing what made the noise. He started walking up the stairs. Each step groaned under his weight. Followed behind him, but when we reached the second floor, I stayed at the top of the stairs while he walked toward the last room on the right. The room where the noise came from. The door was slightly open. Chris reached out and pushed it the rest of the way. I couldn't see inside from where I was standing, but I saw Chris's face. He froze, his whole body locked up. Then he screamed. This panicked, terrified scream and shoved past me so hard I almost fell down the stairs. He yelled, "Run!" And we did. We flew down the stairs, out the front door, and back onto the trail. We didn't stop running until our legs gave out. When we finally stopped, we were bent over, gasping for air. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear my own thoughts. I asked him, "What did you see?" Chris looked at me, his face pale and sweaty, and he said, "There was a woman in there, just standing there, staring out the window. She didn't move. She was like a statue." When I asked him what she looked like, he said all he really noticed was her hair. It was shoulder length and grayish blonde. Then he kept asking me the same question over and over. "How the hell did you know there'd be a woman up there?" I accused him of lying, of pulling a prank on me, that maybe he thought I was trying to scare him, so he decided to flip the scare back on me. But he never admitted to that. He never caved. He swore for days, weeks, even years afterward, that he wasn't joking. The worst part is, I believe him. We both heard that sound upstairs. It wasn't in our heads. It came from something alive. In my memories, my déjà vu, my premonition, whatever you want to call it, they were too specific to be just a coincidence. Sometimes I'm glad I wasn't the one who looked into that room, because that experience changed what I thought déjà vu meant. Forever. Before I got into it, I spent 2 years working overnight shifts at a long-term care home in upstate New York. It was an old building, kind of run down in places. Creaky floors, bad lighting, but decent enough. Most of the residents were stable. Few had late-stage dementia, but most were just elderly, stuck in the slow waiting room between life and death. There was one woman I remember more than anyone else. Her name was Miss Adelaide. She was 87, mostly lucid, soft-spoken, and kind. She kept to herself. Always had a faded photo on her nightstand, a little boy she called her grandson, though no one ever came to visit her. Over the first few months, I fell into a routine. Midnight rounds, hourly checks, coffee at 3 a.m. to keep from nodding off. Most nights were uneventful, but sometimes I'd find Miss Adelaide lying awake, staring at the ceiling, humming this slow, eerie tune. I never recognized the melody. It wasn't happy or sad. It was just empty. One night around 2:15 in the morning, I found her sitting straight up in bed, eyes wide open. I asked if she needed anything, and she replied without blinking, "You already asked me that. You ask every night. But tonight is different." The way she said it wasn't confusion. It wasn't dementia. It was like she was reading from a script I hadn't written yet, like she knew what was coming next. I laughed it off, nervous, and offered her some water. She just shook her head and whispered, "You should remember this part." The next night, same time, I checked on her again, and she gave me the exact same line, word for word. On the third night, she was gone, passed quietly in her sleep around 1:50 a.m. When I went to her room for rounds, her bed was already made. Her things were boxed up like she'd never been there at all. But I couldn't shake what she'd said. It stuck in my mind, so I started digging. Went through old records, night shift notes, archived reports, and I found something. Turns out Miss Adelaide had done this before. Years ago, other staff had logged similar incidents. Always around 2 a.m., she'd say things no one should know. Predicted a nurse's break time down to the minute. Once she even said the name of a new hire before the woman had introduced herself. One entry from 2013 chilled me the most. A nurse wrote down a quote from her. I remember this version. "You take your break at 3:07. You always do." The nurse checked their watch. It was 3:07 exactly. I don't know what was happening with Miss Adelaide. I'm not the type to believe in ghosts or reincarnation. but something about her felt stuck. Like she wasn't just living out her days, she was trapped. Rewinding the same script, waiting for a different ending. And maybe she never got one. Now, years later, I work behind a desk. Life is normal. But sometimes I get this strange wave of déjà vu, and when I do, I stop. I listen. Because maybe it's not just a glitch in the brain. Maybe it's a message. Maybe it's Miss Adelaide or someone like her eking out across timelines, trying to remind us. We've been here before, and it didn't end well. Since leaving that job, I've met other people who used to work at the same care home years apart. Without me bringing it up, they'll sometimes mention strange dreams they had while working night shifts. One woman told me the patient warned her she'd be fired soon. A week later, she was let go during a round of layoffs. She couldn't remember the patient's name, just nodded and said, "That's interesting." But in my head, I knew who it was. Still think about Miss Adelaide, more than I probably should. And sometimes, when I'm drifting off to sleep, I'll hear that humming again, the same empty melody like a sound carried over from another version of me. And every time I hear it, I wonder, what part am I supposed to remember next? If stories like this send chills down your spine, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life horror and unexplained mysteries. Do you believe time can repeat itself? Let me know in the comments below.